I mean, I woke up at 6:30 in the morning in Malaga today, so this is this is a classic gut
Welcome to
check
the
performance.
Player
Yeah,
Manager Pod.
I know. You're gonna be talking and just gonna hear. Yeah,
Thanks.
just buzz me. No, yeah. Welcome back to the Player Manager Podcast. We are already at episode 20. Thanks to everybody who has listened from episode 1 all the way through, and whether you're on your first episode listening or you have listened to all 20, in which case I love you, and I hope you already have a tattoo of both of our faces. But whether you're one or the other, please make sure you do review the podcast. It helps us out a lot, as we are, of course, aspiring podcasters after all. Julian, I bring you in now, my co-host, Julian Gressel. I'm not even calling him a regular guest at this point. How have you been? I feel like we haven't talked in a while.
I've been good, but it's only been a week, hasn't it?
It has. I've lived 5 lifetimes in that week. So I missed you. I missed your face on this, whatever app we use to record this podcast through.
Well, I'm certainly excited to hear about that in a little bit, but I've been good. It's been, thankfully the hurricane missed us, so we haven't had anything to report on that end, and we're just living the life here with the 2 kids and the wife, and yeah, it's about
Still
it.
trying to survive without air conditioning in Miami. I heard through the grapevine.
Yes. Our air conditioning broke thankfully it was in our bedroom. So we have 3 units actually fully. 3, one of them for the main area of the house, kitchen, living room, etc. One of them for the kind of kids area with the guest room, and those 2 are still running, and one for the kind of the master bath and master bedroom.
Ugh.
That one's been out. So it's been quite hot at night, but it's been actually okay. It's been not too bad. So I'm thankful for the little cloudier and not too steamy weather that has kind of been here.
Oh, I'm thankful for air conditioning because apparently Europe hasn't invented that. But we have a lot to talk about today, including a special guest. You have to be a special guest in order to make it onto this podcast. But another Olympian is going to join us to talk about the Olympic journey that was also a teammate of one Julian Gressel. The homegrown Miami hero, Benja Cremaschi, will be making his player manager debut. Very excited to talk to him. He recently made it into, I believe it is the Guardian top 50s, one of those Wonder Kid top 50 lists. Benja Cremaschi making it into one of those. I know, alongside Lamine Yamal and such names, he was on that list as well. A player that has really ascended alongside Lionel Messi and Julian Gressel at Inter Miami. And we have a lot of the latest Inter Miami news. Of course, we're going to dive into the inside the locker room of one of football's pinkest and most interesting football clubs, as we do. The road to back-to-back League Cups is on, despite a loss, which, of course, we're going to dig more into that later, but not too much, because that would be mean. That's
right. And first of all, we're going to start today a little bit differently. We're going to start in Zealand's world today. I love that. You said that so much happened over the last week, so why don't you walk me through that? I know you've obviously been in Europe, as you're complaining about the ACs there too, so what have you been up to, my man?
Right. Well, there's 2 things. There's 2 observations that I've made in my travels across Europe. Well, as I do, I've been following a very interesting small club that I'm going to tell you about. But there's no AC, and every single hotel bathroom is see-through for some reason. I don't know why this is. I don't know if it's just every hotel room I get, but there's always a little see-through wall. There was one, we were in Copenhagen. There was one with a curtain. You could opt in to having the bathroom just wide open. I'm like, so when I'm traveling with my brother. So I don't want the curtains wide open. I'm not trying to watch my brother take a shower here. Right. So we're like trying to close the curtains. And he's like, all right, somebody's got to go take a shower. So you have to like turn the other way because you can see, it's like this sort of translucent glass. I don't know. There's also no ice in the water. So I'm very happy to be back. There's 3 things.
You didn't know that? The ice?
I did know that. It's just a constant. I don't know how every European doesn't die of dehydration. The water cups are like that big. There's no, I'm holding my fingers very close together if you're listening to the audio part of this. And there's no ice, and you got to, they don't give you tap water. I don't know if it's laced with poison or something, or they're just upselling the Americans, in which case, good for them. Very.
But you also don't get screwed on the amount of water you're getting, though. You get more. You
I
don't put
guess,
ice
yeah,
in
but
it.
the tap
Yeah.
water's unlimited.
Yeah.
I'm sure I pay for it somewhere deep down on my bills that I'm not paying attention to. But I mean, I'm getting all the water that I could possibly need. I put it in a Brita and pretend it's been filtered. It's amazing.
Well,
But no,
where was this? Where was this
this was
to start with?
no. My gripes beyond the gripes. I had a wonderful time following a club called Bruno's Magpies. Are you familiar with Bruno's Magpies?
0%.
0%. Okay,
Yes.
well, they are, according to them and other reputable sources, the best pub team in the world. The
Okay.
best pub team in the world. In 2012, going into the 2013 season, a bartender in Gibraltar started a club by inviting this older gentleman who frequented the bar that he worked at to be the manager. They held tryouts on the beach and they started a club because he couldn't get a trial at any of the other clubs in Gibraltar, so he wanted to start his own. And as they started this club, Gibraltar joined UEFA 1 year later. And literally 10 years after they founded this club, which is called Bruno's Magpies after a bar named Bruno's, which we actually went to. We're making a whole video about all this. They played at Copenhagen in the second round of the Conference League. So we went to that. I know we went. They were in the same dressing room Manchester United was in last year, right? Like it's the same team. I mean, it's not the same players, and it's actually very interesting because, as you can imagine, if you're like a professional footballer and you're in a club called the best pub team in the world, that might bother you a little bit in the same vein. So they're in this transition period where they very quickly went from, in their first 3 or 4 years, it was a bunch of guys that drank together at the bar, to now we're qualifying for Europe and have, at least semi-professional team with very formal training sessions and credentialed coaches and matching uniforms and bus rides to the stadium and everything. But they still are.
That's amazing. How did you get even like into that? Well, I know how you got into it by researching probably, but like, how did you get? I think Instagram stories on the team bus and like all that type of stuff. How did you get connected with them?
I mean, it's probably this is, I would guess, the reason that I ended up being able to sit here and talk to you every week, which I really enjoy, is I got a nose for these things. I love, like, I got nothing. I have nothing against. I think I said it in a video one time. Like, I have nothing against the best players in the world playing for the best teams and getting paid the GDP of like Tahiti or whatever to do it. Right? I have nothing against that. They deserve. Yeah, they deserve that money, right? They deserve enough money to fix the AC in Julian Gressel's house. So we'll get somebody on that. But there is also something so cool about these little out of the way teams that end up on this. And everybody on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, they'll make a TikTok about it and be like, oh, this team from Gibraltar played in Copenhagen. But what I got really curious about was like, well, what's it like if we actually go? If I actually go to Gibraltar for a week and I'm like, hey, you want to show me around? What is the club actually like? How does a team? I met the founder of the club. He's like 32. The guy that was a bartender that started the club. He's like 32 years old, and he's sitting here he's helped lead this club to Copenhagen, and they're doing their official training and everything. The away fan section was just like 25 people. They had a 2,500 allocation, right? And it was the former coach, the founder, and a couple of guys that used to play for the team when it was just the guys at the pub. And they were all shirtless, having a great time. Like, and they were going back and forth with Copenhagen's fan section, which is monstrous. I mean, it's 10,000 people and they were jeering and yelling. I actually went over. I know I'm so not answering your question, but I swear I'm going to get to it. I went over with my like camera and stuff, and my brother, who's a brilliant videographer and does the video side of the videos. We went over to the Copenhagen section. We're taking videos of all of them. Right. And I started talking to one of the guys in the front row. A couple people recognized me. They're very nice. And they came down and we were talking. They're like, yeah, when the Magpies walked on the field the first time. I mean, you know this. You've been a professional footballer, soccer player for a long time. You walk on the field for your first kick around for the warm-ups, and the other fan section jeers at you. They whistle, they boo, whatever. Well, they start doing that to Bruno's. And all these guys, even though it's a much more professional club than it has been, they're used to playing 1,000, 2,000 seat stadiums. This is the national stadium of Denmark, right? This thing is like an NFL looking stadium. They all pull out their phones and start recording the Copenhagen fans jeering them. And the Copenhagen fans saw that and they didn't know what to do. So it was like, because they're trying to get under their skin, and all the
That's
Bruno's
amazing.
players are just loving it.
I should
And
do that
so
next time. That's a good strategy.
it's like start FaceTime and you're the wife and kids like, hey, check this out. Look what's
Yeah.
going on. Well, it was crazy. But it is actually as simple as, since we've made a few of these videos now, we take the videos that we've made and we go, hey, we love to make these sorts of documentaries. And we'll just email like the press people at the club and be like, hey, what will we be able to do? And Bruno's, to their credit, literally replied with a phone call. They just called us and they went, you can have access to everything we do. We don't care. So
Amazing.
Team Bus, we were in the tactic meetings. I'd never been in a tactical meeting before.
There you go.
Yeah, we were watching them break down. So they lost 3-0 in the home leg, and they're breaking down the goals, and they're they have all this stuff you don't think about that you obviously take for granted that I just don't know, and I'm sure a lot of the people that listen to this don't know. Half the team doesn't speak English. They speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in
similarities there.
Exactly. The tactical meeting, the coach who's English says it in English, and then the club captain who speaks both languages fluently, he's live translating what the guy is saying. So everybody in the room actually knows, there's like a delayed reaction from the Spanish crew about like when they're getting yelled at, and then they'll respond and it goes back through the captain. But they were so nice. And even when we got to Gibraltar, the director of the club took a whole day off and showed us around, and it was gorgeous. Gibraltar's a fascinating place. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to go there, but it is so how about this? There's 3 full-length fields in the entire country.
Oh my. That's amazing. But then how do they get into the Conference League? Like, how does that happen?
The league's in UEFA. So this is where amazing. It was the match that just hit all of the 10. It was an amateur league 15 years ago. But all of a sudden, when the champion starts getting into the first round of Champions League qualifying, there's actual real money going into the league for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think if you finish top 4 in Gibraltar, you go to the first qualifying round.
Wow.
Of what I mean, I don't know how. I think it's 1 into Champions League, 1 into Europa, and then 2 into Conference League or whatever. And they got drawn against Derry City out of Ireland, and they just beat them. And it's just like, okay. So, I mean, you go into the second round and Copenhagen's waiting, right? If they made it to the third round, they could have been drawn against Chelsea. I mean, so there's kind of there's a beauty to these sorts of tournaments, awesome. Because it just opens that possibility up. Yeah, that video is going to take about a month to edit, but we had a fantastic time. It was 8 or 9 days.
All itching now to see it.
Yeah. I mean, that bus ride, dude. You get that all the time, but the energy on the bus before a big game. And the Latin dudes are in the back of the bus playing like some, like salsa music or something. And like the English dudes and the Gibraltarian dudes are in the front of the bus just looking solemnly out the window with these giant headphones. I felt like I was in a movie or something.
Honestly, I'm laughing here because you are describing exactly what it's like with us too. That is just exactly how it is too, and it's so funny how that transforms to or translates to a club that is so different from obviously ours, right? It's really, really funny.
I guess it's all so different, right? The experiences are all so different, but at the core level, it's all the same.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell my favorite story from the whole thing. There was a player, I won't name names, but there was one player, I thought it was so funny, and this isn't necessarily even that bad. He saw the size of the stadium during the training before the game, and he walks up to the club's official cameraman, and he's like, Neil, I've got one thing I need to ask you. I need you to get me one picture of me standing on the ball with all those fans behind me. Just one, just me. That's all I need. And then you send that to me, and that's going right on my dating profile right there. Amazing. That's the one. It was perfect. Amazing trip, and it's going to be a really fun video. But yeah, Gibraltarian football, we shine the light.
I love it. Well, I feel like we should have more segments like this in the podcast of where you describe what you do and how you do it. I feel like these are fun stories that I love to hear because I don't get to hear those a lot either.
I also think it's great because the tactic meeting in the bus, I'm like, I thought that I'm on the bus. I'm like, oh, this is what Julian does all the time. Just sitting here. I was right. I was right behind. I was with the coaches though. I was more in with the coaches than the players. They had to leave the players alone. But you had your own big game that you were riding on a solemn bus with Latin music going on in the background. And it didn't unfortunately go that well, but fortunately, it didn't matter, right? Because you're through to the round of 32 of the League's Cup. So just off the top, with Inter Miami losing a game but advancing, that's got to be a weird feeling. It is for me.
It is a weird feeling. It is a weird feeling, and one, I mean, that you can kind of cope with because just in general of what it is, like that's how the setup was going into it. So we knew that, we can kind of play a little carefree in a sense. But yeah, certainly a game that, we knew that we could test ourselves a little bit and find out of how good we are against really good opponents. And Tigres, obviously, one of the biggest clubs in Mexico, certainly one of the biggest clubs in North America. So really, really good test in that sense. And funny, you talked about booing and the fans booing you, that type of environment. We were in there too, at NRG Stadium in Houston, big stadium. Houston Texans play there for football. And I want to say 80-90% Tigres fans. And you walk out for the lineup or for the warm up, and they're booing you. You come back in from the warm up, they're booing you. You do any sort of thing positive, they don't like that, and they're cheering for Tigres, and that's it was a really cool atmosphere to be part of, and honestly, gave me a little glimpse of what it could be like at their stadium in Monterrey, and kind of how that would be. What an awesome experience that would be.
Now, we were talking about the atmosphere leading up to the game. How did it measure up to what you expected it to be? Was it more intense? Was it maybe a little less intense? I don't know how it would be.
It was a little bit more intense than what I thought. I mean, they had proper cheers. I don't know if some fans even came from Monterrey for this game, or they're staying for like the League's Cup more. But it definitely was a bit more intense and more kind of pro Tigres, and really like chants like they do. I'm expecting at their home games too, like coordinated and everything. And it was a cool experience. It was really, really fun to be a part of. And obviously they scored.
Martinez intervenes, then Aviles didn't get that right. Flicked on. Can Tigres make something out of this? Oh!
Whoa! You kind of fall down, fall behind, you fight back, and then they score again. And it's just like this back and forth game that was also a really good game, I think, for people that were there in the stadium and also for people that watched.
And what's it like playing in an NFL stadium? I mean, or the locker rooms just absolutely absurdly cool? Like, is there some elaborate way you have to get into the stadium? Is it different at all?
Really long walk from the bus to the locker room. Really long. Like, we're talking like half a mile almost. No, but big locker rooms, obviously, because you can fit football teams in there. So you have a lot of space, but the lockers are nothing special. It was but it was a good stadium. I mean, the one thing that obviously wasn't great that I think we talked about before was the grass on top of the turf.
Oh, I didn't know that they were still rocking with that. I figured you were just playing on turf there.
No, so they did that, but they laid it down, I think, a few days prior, so it wasn't really like growing together. It wasn't great. Walking on it initially, I had some really, really big doubts, to be honest with you, and I was like, this is just not good. But then playing on it was a little bit better than I had expected. The ball rolled a little bit nicer. Sometimes it died. It didn't bounce as much, obviously, but it actually held up okay, so that there wasn't like a big injury risk in a sense. And that's, it was okay. But I actually heard that they are for the World Cup, and I know we talked about this last week, I think, or weeks prior, that for the World Cup, that these all turf stadiums will have grass installed months before their games. So the turf will be taken out and the proper grass will be installed, so there is nothing on top of it. So it'll be, just not like this, and it'll be a proper field.
That was my biggest concern about the World Cup coming up, is that stupid standoff around the field. And now that they're going to plant it months before. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yes. So good.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I mean, in terms of atmosphere and surface and, the game itself, I think if we want to talk about that quick, it was really about details, and we lost the details battle in a sense, right? To poor clearances from us that lead to turnovers, that lead to great goals, that ultimately you can kind of say to yourself, okay, they didn't really outplay us. We found a way to fight back.
Guzman against Campana. Oh, confident from Campana. Gets Guzman to go the wrong way. And it's level in Houston. 1-1.
Had the chance to go up as well. They didn't really have many other chances, I thought. So those are two detailed and simple errors that I think we can correct to be kind of ready for these bigger games. And experiences like that will certainly help us moving forward now that into the knockouts, but then also when you talk about MLS and MLS Cup playoffs and all those types of things. So certainly a good test and a way, to look positively at the game.
And now you have this kind of mental pivot that's going on because you're already through to the next round before the game. You play the game, you lose, but you get the good atmosphere, whatever. Now you're in this kind of MLS section of the draw. I don't know if you've familiarized yourself with the bracket yet, but you're playing Toronto FC in the round of 32 of Leagues Cup, and it is a March Madness style bracket here. And right next to you guys, like you play the winner of, if you win, Columbus and Sporting Kansas City. Is that a big change in mindset from having to play against the Mexican teams? I mean, there's got to be a lot more familiarity there for starters.
Yeah, absolutely. There's familiarity, and it's something that, we've beaten Toronto this year. We've beaten, I believe, Columbus, and against Kansas City, I'm not sure. I think we might have tied, but it was certainly, those are opponents that we're certainly familiar with, and that we're, it kind of is what it is at that moment. Actually, we won at Arrowhead. Sorry, thank you, Michael, our producer, chiming in here. So 3 positive results against those teams that are up now, obviously on Thursday, and then hopefully next week, where it's about survive and advance, and that's a different mentality. It's a different type of game that you play now, and that they will also play. They will obviously also draw their conclusions from the defeats that they've had against us. So it'll certainly be exciting to face them in a different way rather than just 3 points up for grabs. Now it's about, like I said, surviving and advancing. And with Toronto being up first, and I think we beat them 3-0 at home. And honestly, they were better than that. I thought it wasn't a 3-0 game in that sense. They've been playing really well even ever since then. And you can see how dangerous they are. They beat Pachuca, which is no joke either. So certainly going to be a tough one coming on Thursday.
Well, their coach is also John Herdman, who's the former Canadian men's and women's national team coach. So yeah, get your binoculars out, hire a couple of people, bring a couple of youth players, try and do some drone spotting, just to maybe or you just feed them fake set pieces. Maybe I'm onto something. You run a bunch of fake set piece routines at training. Give John what he wants to see. But that will be what drones or not. Miami against Toronto. That's going to be on August 8th. So already in the gearing up process, I would imagine. A stupid question. When do you go to Toronto or not?
No, we play at home.
Assuming you're on the road. Okay. You were like the lowest seeded team in the tournament. How are you playing at home?
Well, Toronto was even lower than us.
It's beautiful.
It was last year's MLS results, and I want to say Toronto was last. And Miami kind of fought for the playoffs towards the end, and then kind of just lost out at the very end, so we weren't fully in the back. But Toronto was, I think, the last team in the league last year, or second to last, or something like that. So they were seated lower, and actually we would have played at home against Pachuca as well, because they obviously are from Mexico. They don't really have a home. They're not one of the 4 top Mexican teams that gets home field privileges all throughout. Would have been a home game either way, but certainly nice to have one more.
Except I've heard the hotel rooms on the road do have air conditioning, so it's a 1/2 dozen of the other sort of
they do, and they have doors on the showers and bathrooms as well.
You have no idea what it meant to close the door to my bathroom when I got home today. It was just absolutely spiritual feeling. But just to prep ourselves.
Thank you for that visual. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I look like a Greek god. I appreciate that. I'm really toning. Did 5 push-ups the other day. We need to talk about Olympic football, which is something that was fun to talk about for the U.S. during the group stage because the United States battled its way through despite a tough second half against France in the opening match to get to the quarterfinals. Only 8 teams left, and then Morocco happened. I was traveling during this match. I looked up the score and then dropped my phone in disgust. It ended up being 4-0, but I've always said something. As much as the Olympic tournament is cool to go into, I don't know because of the way the rosters are set up. And obviously we talked about this with Walker last week, right? The way the rosters are set up, I don't know if you can take anything away from this for the future. Am I right in saying that? Because the U.S. goes and loses 4-0 to Morocco in the quarterfinal. It's not the best look.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either because you don't really know obviously how those players will impact the full squad, right? And if you look at our roster and if you look at the full men's national team roster, you could have obviously had a lot more players that are on the full national team play in that tournament. So it's actually not a true representation of what our U23 team would look like if they're at full strength, right? So the balance between the two is you have to take into consideration. But at the same time, I think I chalk it off as like a really, really good experience for some young players that could potentially impact the national team down the road.
Benja.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure he will take a lot away from it, and I'm sure we'll hear about that. But you talk about guys like Kevin Paredes, who's playing in the Bundesliga, who now will go back to his Bundesliga team to hopefully make an impact there, or guys like Busio, who's now playing in the Serie A now this year because he got promoted with Venezia, right? So there's Tanner Testament, obviously, who's linked to really, really big clubs in Italy now. So you have certain players that will, hopefully take this as an experience, as a big tournament experience, and hopefully, use it to kind of further their development and then ultimately have them impact the national team down the line. And some might, some won't, some will. Hopefully more of them will. We'll try to see where that leads.
And you brought up a good point. Something I do want to throw out there is Morocco seemed to have brought maybe the highest level players that it could, at least in the overage category. I mean, Ashraf Hakimi, who's one of the best fullbacks in the world, was on this team where obviously like Christian Pulisic wasn't walking through the door for the United States, right? And some of that was team need and everything, but it is just such a wild card in terms of who you can get. I mean, there was a quarterfinal between Egypt and Paraguay. And I don't think there'd be anybody that would argue that those two teams are two of the best 8 teams in the world, obviously. Yeah. But at the same time, don't act like I wasn't incredibly entertained by that quarterfinal. It went all the way to penalties. Shout out to Egypt. There you go. But sure. You named a couple of players. Is there anybody else that you feel like on the Olympic team, Benja obviously removed, we're going to talk to him in just a couple minutes, that has that opportunity to make a jump? Maybe if you had a chance to catch a game, somebody that caught your eye.
I mean, I do think about the guys that are, one either really young like Benja, right, who's really just been a pro for a year. I feel like the Leagues Cup last year was kind of his coming out, where then after he got a call up for the national team and he did really well in MLS, and now he earned that, and even had an injury early on in the season. So it's like, guys like that you don't really know where their ceiling's at yet, in a sense, right? So those are the guys I look at. He obviously didn't play a ton of minutes also at the Olympics, so why, in a sense, right? But then you have guys like Busio, who's played a fantastic year last year in Italy, and will now play in Serie A. Tanner, like I said, Testament, who's I think
he was like the vice captain or some sort of co-captain of the team, I think.
I think he wore the armband. I think he wore captain. The captain. So him, I think guys like even the goalies like Patrick Schulte, who if I've played with, I know he wants to make the jump to Europe soon, to potentially kind of expose himself to higher levels. in that way. And then, like I said, Kevin Paredes, who was already playing at a good team in the Bundesliga, who's hopefully getting more minutes. Those types of guys um, that are well on their way or that are really, really young. You talk about a guy like John Tolkien, I think, who had an excellent tournament, who will now eventually, hopefully, go over to Europe as well, maybe through the Red Bull system a little bit, and leave MLS to kind of, gain more experience there. But those are certainly the guys I think I look at and see how much, whatever the new coach of the U.S. men's national team kind of looks for in players, that these guys will come in and make an impact down the line. Maybe not for this coming World Cup, but then obviously certainly beyond. Because there is beyond 2026, right? We always talk about 2026, and
It
it's
doesn't
like,
feel like it sometimes, but there is.
I know.
I have to slip this in there. But John Tolkien, he's going on an adventure. That's a real deep cut. So there's going to be one person that picks up on that and laughs. All right, we're just leaving some space for the cricket sound effect. On to the women's national team. Got to give them a shout out today, because right before we hopped on to record the podcast, they did manage to win against Germany in extra time and will be playing for the gold medal. The U.S. women's national team playing for a gold medal. It feels like all is right with the world, but a very tough loss for Germany, who should have scored with like a minute left in this match. It's an unbelievable save by the goalkeeper, Alyssa Nair.
Very true. Yeah. Great game. Great game to watch. You can see how much they were fighting for that, both teams. But
The Julian
yeah,
Gressel derby, as it were.
I know. Back to back extra time winners for the US, and certainly a team of character at this moment, right? A team that feels like it's a little bit destiny for them to win the gold. So we'll see how they can do against Brazil. But certainly, yeah, I'm happy that, they're back on top.
Brazil surprising France and then beating Spain in the semifinal after the U.S. I think it probably just wrapped up like an hour or two ago by the time we're recording, to make it to that final. But, screw the football, Julian. I want to know what your favorite Olympic moment has been, since we're about to talk to an Olympian. Just any of the sports. Give me some dressage or something. What's your favorite Olympic moment you've seen so far?
I love sports. I love the Olympics. I love how, there's synchronized swimming that gets airtime on TV. I love all that type of stuff. Like it's incredible what these athletes do weekly, daily, to prepare for this exact moment, because this is their biggest event, in the world. And I love that. But my favorite moment so far was still probably the 100-meter sprint race.
That was crazy.
Yeah, Noah Lyles, and we watched it live at the house here with my two kids awake, and then as they kind of geared through kind of the pre-show and everything, they showed kind of the heats and the semifinals, and all of a sudden my 3.5-year-old, she kind of stands at the other side of the house, bends down, puts her two hands on the ground, and I go, and she goes, "Daddy, say set and go." So I like say set, and she puts her butt up in the air, and I say go, and she just tries to sprint as fast as she can through the whole house. So and then we watched the race together. So it was just an electric little afternoon there at the house, at the Gressel house. But she did manage to sprint a few times, and a few times she also tripped after like the first or second step, and that was like, wouldn't have been that fast in the sprint, but it was just funny to see her kind of get into it. And I guess second favorite would probably be gymnastics, just because my wife is really into it. My daughter has been doing gymnastics, so to have her see these kind of athletes out there on TV doing what they do. I mean, Simone Biles, one of the greatest ever. So it's just, kind of have that connection with the kids, I guess, makes it special.
I remember that, though. I remember growing up, you always used to play whatever sport was on TV, but when the Olympics were on, you were sharpening sticks in the driveway and trying to do the javelin, just like all sorts of stuff. I mean, that reminded me of this story that went viral. Steven Nedorosik, the pommel horse guy, the guy, with the glasses for the men's gymnastics team. Apparently, the day after he does the whole pommel horse thing to help win the team bronze, the coach from his local gym said that they had to get another phone because so many people were calling to sign their kids up for gymnastics after having watched that. Like, the effect that you can have just to grow those types of sports is so heartwarming to me. But I'll go in a different direction, deep cuts, because I actually used to work at NBC for the Olympics in another life.
Wow.
Before I was a YouTuber, I was a sports broadcaster, and I worked as a producer of sorts for the Olympics. And the first one that I did was 2016. And I got not stuck. I mean, I kind of loved it. Logging highlights for wrestling for a week. And I went from having zero wrestling knowledge to just still feels like zero, but a lot more than the average person. Problem is when you talk to somebody that actually knows wrestling, they start using phrases like, oh, he just triple hog-tied him there. And you're like, I have no idea what you just taught. I have no idea what just happened. But I now can watch wrestling and enjoy it because I spent a week having, blasting it into my brain 12 hours a day. And there was a guy, I just want to give him a shout out. I actually am going to have to look up his name because he, for the first time in Olympic history, won a gold medal in the same event in 5 consecutive Olympics. 5. Wow. It's heavyweight Greco-Roman wrestling. 5 people on the earth understand the full rules of Greco-Roman wrestling. To begin with, Mijaín Lopez. He's 42 years old, and watching him win a 5th consecutive gold. He's so good that the guy he wrestled in the final was Cuban, but used his second nationality to get into the Olympics because he couldn't beat this guy in the Cuban Olympic trials. And so he used his second nationality of Chilean, ended up meeting him in the finals anyways, and of course lost to him because this guy is just impossible to beat. So 5 straight gold medals for Mijaín Lopez. Deserves the shout out for that. It's beyond, that's a 20-year span of winning the gold medal.
That's
at every
incredible.
I think the first one was London. Well, I guess it's 16. Yeah. Beijing, London. I can do this. Rio, Tokyo, Paris. 5.
There you go.
5.
That's insane. Yeah. I mean, those types of stories about athletes like that are just awesome. They're just awesome. And that's what the Olympics are all about. And honestly, I'm also a big fan of the Paralympics that are coming after. To kind of get inspired and hear so many stories like that. It just make you feel good, So I highly recommend tuning in for that type of stuff.
If you've never watched the Paralympics also, by the way, the one that captivates me the most is the skiing, because I've skied a few times in my life, right? And it is a terrifying experience to begin with when you've got like more control over what's happening. The Paralympic skiers that are basically sitting in a chair with a ski strapped to the bottom, flying down a mountain at 100, that is so much harder than what skiers not in that chair are doing at the normal Olympics. It's crazy. In certain instances, the Paralympics, they're actually doing something that is much more terrifying or much more crazy to me than what I think they should just add some of it should just be in the Olympics. I would love to watch those events in the Olympics. I break it up. I know they go in, and I think they have it at the same point. Right? They'll have the Paris Paralympics will be right after.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
so
I'll be locked in on my gold zone. I could just stay gold zoning all the way through the rest of this. Why are we, the non-Olympians, talking about our favorite Olympic moment when we could talk about it with an actual Olympian? Because Benja Cremaschi, the top 50 wonder kid in the world, Julian's teammate at Inter Miami, and a member of the U.S. men's national team at the Olympics that made it into the knockouts, is with us. Benja, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going right to your favorite thing you've seen at the Olympics so far. As an Olympian, your opinion obviously matters more here. So.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for having me. But yeah, I think my favorite thing in the Olympics probably has to be Ledecky. Just setting the first 20 time records for the competition, and I think that's honestly just insane.
Did you get to experience anything in person, anything live while
No,
you're there after you got knocked out?
Yeah. No, because we were in Paris super little time, and some of the guys went to watch Ledecky actually, and watch the swimming competition. But it was pretty hard to get tickets. I think Walker kind of did his thing and got a couple of guys in. But I honestly decided to go to the Olympic Village and check how that was, and it was pretty fun. We didn't have much time, but I did what I could, and after we lost, it was 7:30 a.m. flight home, so I
Ugh.
Oh
couldn't do
wow.
much the next day. So yeah.
Yeah. But were just before we rewind this to the beginning, were the beds in the Olympic Village as bad as they say?
Yeah, I have no idea because we stayed in hotels. We didn't stay in the Olympic Village.
You're too fancy
We
for
we
that. Sorry, I
just we
forget.
just went to visit it. But no, I didn't even check out a room. Nothing. We just
Okay.
walked around for a little bit. But it was fun. It was interesting.
What was your
You
favorite
get
thing
to
you did see in the Olympic Village then?
I think the building of the food hall was pretty cool because it was just a bunch of flags, and it was like lit up Paris 2024. It was very pretty. Also, I went when it was kind of sunset, so it just looked
okay.
really nice.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Walker last week, and he was saying how he was like or he felt a little bit far removed, and he like from like Team USA didn't really see many other athletes, and because you guys had
Yeah,
been all over kind of France, in
yeah.
a way, right, playing at all these different. Did you get that spirit at least a little bit before that quarterfinals match, or was it like, did you meet anybody else that you were like, holy, who's this, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't meet anyone, but yeah, walking around the village and just seeing a bunch of athletes and the countries they're from is pretty interesting. It's
Yeah.
fun just to watch, and with a couple of guys, we were joking around and trying to guess what sport they had, like what sport they played, and I honestly think we didn't hit one. I don't think we hit one, but it was pretty fun, just to see a bunch of people from a bunch of different countries, just walking around in a village, let's say, and yeah, I think that was pretty interesting to watch.
We'll take
Amazing.
this. We jumped right into the Olympic stuff in the middle of it, but I want to take this back to the beginning because when you start becoming a footballer, right, a soccer player, the Olympics is not necessarily something that comes into focus right away, right? Your dream is to make it at a club and play professionally, maybe play for your national team, and so on. When did you realize that the Olympics actually could be a possibility? And how did you find out that you were actually going to be able to go to the Olympics? Because the Olympics themselves are just beyond insane.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think what you're saying is very truthful. Honestly, you know, obviously you will always want to participate in big events like this, and but it's not really the set goal, since you're a child, right? If you're a soccer player, and the Olympics was a target, and when I called into, or when I knew that I had the possibility to get called into the first camp for the Olympics and be in that cycle, I feel like that was the moment where I set that goal in my head. And obviously, when they let me know about the Olympics, it was huge. It was, something that I was working for maybe a couple months, and since the first camp. I mean, Julian was there. I had
Yeah.
a talk with him, and I told him that I was pretty anxious, to find out if I was gonna make the roster. And the moment I found out, now that I called my family, my friends, and everyone, and then I remember at dinner telling Julian, and he told me that he already knew. So
Yeah.
that was pretty funny.
See, I knew before Benja did. It was funny,
Yeah,
because our assistant coach came up to me to round out the story a little bit. Our assistant coach came up to me, I think, a couple days before, about that you made it, and he told me that you made it, and then it was like about kind of when the coach will call you to tell you, basically, because they were like worried that it was going to be too close to game time or whatever. So I don't know. I just like listened and said, do it as early as possible in the day, um, and yeah, so I kind of knew. So I kind of had to play dumb a little bit every time I asked him. I was like, "Hey, did you hear already?" Or kind of what's happening. But and you told me that you actually missed the call in the beginning, right?
Yeah, because he texted me in the morning, but we had practice in the morning, I think, and I think I didn't even check my messages or something like that. And then I remember getting back to the hotel, having lunch, and going up the elevator, and I checked my messages, and I saw that he had texted me. So I texted him right away. He called me right away, and yeah, that's how I found out.
Yeah, nice. No, and then we celebrated a little bit with the team with Diego together as well,
Yeah.
um, at the dinner then that night.
And I was fascinated. We've obviously been kind of talking about this as the Olympic tournament goes on by the composition of this team. Did it feel different playing with the Olympic team than it does playing with any other a youth national team or club team that you've played with? Because it feels so thrown together last minute. In the roster's 16 guys.
Yeah, and it obviously, I mean, for me, it feels different because I've played with youth teams, but I haven't really been at a tournament. I haven't
Yeah.
played any World Cups, any youth World Cups, or anything. So this is my first tournament with uh with the USA, and so obviously it did feel different. It's also 18 players with three alternates, and and it did feel different. It was obviously a little longer than usual camps, but it was great. Honestly, I enjoyed it so much. There wasn't one time where I felt like I was bored. Maybe in some camps I'm like, oh, I just want to get back, like I want to go home. But I was really happy there. The guys honestly were great. The team was very united, and I feel like that just made it pass super fast too.
Who were your best friends on the team?
Mm.
I was really tight with Kevin Paredes and Griffin Yao, the DC
Two
boys.
DC guys, yeah.
You know
Yeah.
them.
You probably
Yeah,
talked so
those
much crap about me, didn't you?
I mean, they just told me that you would just hit them in practice.
Because
That's
they
the
were
only
too
thing.
quick. They were
Yeah,
too
that's the
quick.
only thing they would tell me. Um, but yeah, I mean, they're great guys. I mean, you know them. They're clowns. They're always
Yeah.
messing around, and it was super fun to just have them around, and I would always just spend time with them.
Awesome.
But honestly, everyone was great. The whole team was obviously amazing people.
Is the football that's played, like, is the soccer played different than anything you'd experienced before? Obviously, the experience itself was, but when you're on the field in the Olympics, the passes were sharper, the tactics were different, or was it all just same old?
Yeah, I mean, I think Olympics is a top level. I think there's a lot of huge players playing that tournament. I mean, you could I could name a few that played in it. You know, Julian Alvarez played.
Yeah.
He's a top player. Lacazette, Hakimi. You know, we played against Hakimi and Lacazette, and you could tell that they're top players. So obviously everything is sharp, is quick. But yeah, it's fun to experience that because you get a feel and taste of what the next level is. So it's awesome.
So that kind of whets the appetite to try and keep pushing to get involved. I got get involved in those
Yeah,
types of matches
obviously,
more. Yeah.
obviously. I mean, it probably just feeds a little more into everything, and just experiencing the level that is played there, is amazing.
But now you're back in Miami, right? Because you had to catch that 7:30 flight that somebody so graciously booked you to
Yeah,
get back immediately. And I just have this is almost a favor to ask because I'm a Floridian. I'm from Tampa, though. I know it's completely different, right? But I am at least from Florida, so I get half of it. I rode alligators to school as well. Like,
yeah.
it makes sense. But Julian's this kind of new Floridian. Is there anything that you feel like you need to teach Julian so he can be more of a native Floridian, right? So he can be more natural, a little less awkward.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
What do
he
you
he
mean? I
speaks
got
pretty
my
good. He speaks pretty good in Spanish. I don't know if you speak it, but you understand it.
yeah.
So I feel
Thank you.
like that's important in Miami. I mean, absolutely everyone speaks Spanish, so I think he has that pretty well. So I can't really teach him much.
I mean, I got my sunglasses on. I got my Birkenstocks. Still a little German in
Yeah.
there. I got my tank tops ready. How much more Floridian do you want me to get here? My AC's out, but that's about it. I feel like I need an AC.
I feel like he's pretty well prepared,
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
of course.
Yeah, perfect. But the first time I actually heard about you, Benja, as me being the one person in this conversation that is not a professional athlete, I just heard about you on social media. But it was this interesting conversation that was around not just you being from Florida, but you also having these Argentine roots. And then all of a sudden, instantly, when you make your kind of senior debut, you're playing with the greatest player of all time, who's also Argentine.
Yeah.
And we just talked about the Olympic experience, but this is obviously the first time we've been able to kind of hang out on this podcast and talk. What was that like? I mean, Julian talks about at length what it's like to play with Leo Messi and all the guys on the team. But for you, with those Argentine roots, like the moment you realized you'd be on the same field with Leo Messi, I would have fainted. And I'm not, I don't have an Argentine heart, as your dad would say.
Yeah, when everything happened, it obviously felt really unreal. I didn't I didn't really want to believe it until I saw it, until I saw him in person. Um, Obviously I felt it because my phone was blowing up. Everyone was texting me. It was just crazy. Obviously I was one of the few Argentines that were in Miami, in Inter Miami before he got there, and yeah, it just blew up. Like my phone blew. I think I went from 15K followers to like 300 in less than a week. So that was just insane. But then after seeing him, for the first time is something different. That's when you really understand that you're gonna be playing with the guy that you've watched your entire life and that you've admired, and just honestly seeing how great of a guy he is and everything is is something that I don't even know how to describe it. It's something that you don't expect, and it's been great. I mean, Julian sees it. I feel like he feels the same thing, and it's just amazing to be surrounded by these players, not just him, but the others.
Is there a moment for you, that just one moment or multiple moments, where it's either an advice that he's given you, it's something that he said, it's something that you guys experienced together, a goal celebration, whatever, that kind of sticks out? Because I feel like you have a different relationship to him, obviously, than me, just because you can speak to him, right? and
Yeah.
and, and so much more in depth, right? For me, it's all surface level, like, type of stuff, right? But is there something that sticks out for you that, you've kind of experienced with him together?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, talking to him, you just see how down to earth he is, and how he just would have a conversation with you about anything. But something that sticks out to me for sure is a goal celebration, when I gave him that pass back in against the New York Red Bulls.
Robinson leaves, Busquets over to Jordi Alba, what a touch! Messi to his right, he keeps it on his left, of course. Oh, what a ball to Cremaschi! And to Messi!
And the goal that I don't know how he sees me, but he does.
Yeah, I
And,
remember that
and
watching. Yeah.
he jumps into my arms, and I feel like that moment is a moment that I could never forget. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I didn't want to let go. But obviously, I can't carry him everywhere. So, I don't know, that moment for sure was probably the greatest moment.
Did he know
Amazing.
you were like, part Argentine when you first met, or how did he find out that, and what was his reaction?
Yeah, I kind of got surprised when I met him. So when I met him, I was parking in the parking lot, and I see him walk in with his kids into the facility. So I was like, oh my God! And I texted my family, my friends, and whatever. I walked in pretty nervous. I went to say hi to him, like to greet myself, and he said Benja, like he said my name. So that kind of caught me off guard. How he knew who I was, and he spoke to me in Spanish. So that was pretty great. Uh, that was super nice of him, I guess.
So
Like,
you got a jump scare from Leo Messi walking into
Yeah.
the facility the first time because he just said your name. You thought you were
yeah.
trying to plan how you were going to introduce yourself, weren't you?
Yeah, obviously, I was nervous. I didn't know how to say it, how to introduce myself or anything. But my locker room is opposite from him, opposite corners, and he met me halfway, and he he said Benja. I greeted myself, and I don't know. It was honestly a great moment.
It's
Sounds amazing.
Well, I can't give you that type of moment, but I'll try. I'll try to give you another great moment because this is hot off the press. I saw this. Today was a travel day for me, and I saw this during the travel day. But Goal.com does its 50 best wonder kids in the world. I actually don't even know if you've seen this yet. You might have.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know if I've
you are the
seen it.
48th best wonder kid in the world, according to Goal.com, just ahead of the Australian superstar Nestori Irankunda, who just signed with Bayern. So, I mean, this is a very, very cool spot to be in. And I want to give, Julian some credit for that because you do have 3 goals this year. But Julian did assist one of them.
El toque para Julian Gressel. El centro por bajo está. ¡Gol! Es tuyo, Benja. Apareció Benjamín Cremaschi.
So
Yeah.
it's possible you wouldn't be in the top 50 wonder kids if it wasn't for Julian. So I'll just
For Julian.
open up.
I
the
also
floor.
did give him the assist for his first goal for Miami.
Campana again, the return. Jordi Alba brings this down sweetly, played into the 18. Oh, Cremaschi couldn't take the pass cleanly. Gressel gives it a go and fires it home.
So I'm
That's
just
right.
putting that out there.
Yes, you're right. Very
I'm
true.
It was
putting that out there.
reciprocated. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying.
He did, yes. Yeah. Well, thank you then.
Yeah, thank you too. I appreciate what you do for me.
No, but I think we obviously had a stretch of where we played together quite a bit, where I was out on the wing and you were kind of as a right-sided 8 just before you left there for the Olympics. And, Leo got hurt and I kind of slotted in, or was it the Copa and I kind of slotted in on the right. I felt like our understanding was pretty good from the start and something that you can see obviously on that Charlotte goal where, I know that you're going to make that run. You got it likes to run, you got it likes to get forward and, make difficult things happen. And that was certainly something. But I want to go back to maybe a question that I don't know if you think about this all the time, but is there something that your friends ask you all the time about kind of what your life is like? And because you are living kind of a teenage dream a little bit, right? In your hometown, you're
Yeah.
playing for your pro team, for the club here with the greatest player in the world. All eyes of North American or the world soccer is on us in a sense, right? And you are kind of right in the middle of it. And is there something that your friends that kind of have access to the inner circle to you ask you all the time?
Yeah, my friends have asked me a bunch of things. Obviously, how it feels, right, to play with him and all of that. My closest friends actually don't really ask me much. They kind of don't care that I'm a soccer player. Like,
Okay,
obviously they do,
good.
but they just see me as the same kid, I always was, and I actually love that from them. Um, but yeah, I have people come up to me and ask me how it is, and I tell them, I tell them what I feel and the experiences that I've had for now, and for other people that aren't in my life, it's insane, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if it was one of my friends and I look at it from the outside, I wouldn't believe what's happening. But since it's my life, I've said it before, but since it's my life, I normalize it so much
Yeah.
Like I try to
I feel
normalize my life so much, but it's it's incredible. It's something that shouldn't happen, you know, and it happens, and it's I just say that I'm lucky to be in the spot that I am. You know, I've worked hard, I've dedicated a lot of time, but to be a soccer player, you know, not to be playing alongside, you know, the best players in the world.
yeah.
Well, sometimes it just works out, particularly when you have fantastic hair, which is my professional segue to our fan questions, because we put this out the internet. Julian tossed it out as well, and we wanted some questions that the fans would be able to ask you during this whole deal. And the first one is from Quinn Arthur Cahoon on Instagram, who says, "Of course, what's the hair routine, man?"
My hair routine, I mean, probably not gonna believe it, but I only put shampoo in my hair.
Oh, come on.
Just
No.
only, yeah, only shampoo. If I put conditioner, it's just gonna go straight down. I'll probably have like a bucket. But yeah, I only put shampoo. In the mornings, I stick my head in the shower, wet it, dry it, and I'm off. Um, but yeah, I don't have
Easy.
really a hair routine, no products, anything. I feel
Natural
like,
beauty.
Yeah, I
yeah,
was
it's
gonna the
just
the
natural, and it just shapes up this way, and yeah, that's about it.
the iconic hair is all natural, which is awesome and also even more depressing for my own hairline. The next
Can I
question.
get to what? Can I get to ask his next question, please? Can I ask
Yeah.
this next question, please? It is from Houston Crawford, also from Instagram, and he asks, "What is it like having Julian Gressel as a teammate?"
Is
I'll
that your
say this.
alternate account, Houston Crawford on
Yeah,
Instagram?
that's me. It's my burner.
I'll say this: if he keeps on giving me those passes and those assists, or me giving him passes and he scores, giving me assist, like giving me an assist, um, yeah, he's a great guy, great teammate
That's
for
all.
sure.
Only then.
For sure, yeah. Only then, only if he can make me rich.
Oh, amazing.
Nah.
I make you
Obviously,
rich up here in your mind too. No.
yeah. No, obviously. I mean, I've been with Julian for what, it's been 7 months, 8 months,
Yeah.
and I mean he's been great. You've been great to me. I mean we've sat down and we've had multiple conversations about if it's life or the sport, and obviously it's nice to have someone like that to basically, because you're just giving me your experience, that you've lived, and it's honestly just great to absorb all of that. Like I try to absorb information from Busquets and Leo and Suarez and Jordi and whoever it is, and you're obviously someone that I try to listen to, and I don't know, having you has been good. I feel like it's been good for me for this year, and yeah, so I appreciate having you, bro.
Thanks for saying that. No, I appreciate it. Good.
Um, if you ever wanted to mix up the hair game, Julian obviously goes with a different approach. So I feel like might be able to help you out there too. And then Kevin, we got a third question for you from Kevin on Instagram. He said, "What's your favorite local place to grab a bite to eat?"
In Miami, I think in Miami to grab something to eat is Chimba. I feel like I've posted it before. It's nice. It's in around Midtown. Super nice area. Super good food. It's kind of Latin based foods. It has Argentinian dishes. It has, I think, Colombian dishes, Chile dishes, and just a bunch of dishes that are really good. And I think that has to be one of the top for me.
What is your order there?
I'll probably get the milanesa. I
Oh,
think that's the safest and best way to go.
Okay. All right. Well, when you will get transferred to a big European team, if that is sooner or later, because it will happen, because you have the quality to do it and the mind to do it as well. then we will have our goodbye dinner there. How about that?
Yeah, perfect.
I love
I'm
it.
down.
Can I come? I want the Milanese.
You're
Anyway.
invited.
You're coming for that, but not for me? Great.
I'm assuming by then we've hung out a few more times, Julian. I wouldn't do that to you. But thank you so much, Benja, for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's it for this week. Thank you again to Benja for joining us today. He's fantastic. Please follow us on Instagram at PlayerManagerPod because we like to think we are also fantastic. You won't regret it. Hopefully. Bye.